Our values guide many of the important decisions we make as citizens and increasingly as consumers. But when it comes to work, values don't always take priority. Aligning your work with your values sounds like a luxury many of us don't believe we have, but this episode features someone who has put her values at the forefront of her work. In this episode of the Top Digital Podcast, I talked to the managing director of 360 Agency,
Andrea Henao,
about her commitment to helping sustainable brands grow. That's coming up next on the Top Digital Podcast. Can you give me kind of the origin story of the agency?
In advertising, I've realized that we were rarely or never asked which account we wanted to work on or which product we would like to actually promote. When you work in advertising, you never asked if you strongly support the brand you actually promote. And the thing is, nowadays, climate change is so real and it's progressing so fast that I truly believe we all have a part of responsibility. And we cannot say any longer, oh, I didn't know, or I'm not directly involved. We are all in our daily basis impact. Then I've decided after working for Volkswagen account in Berlin and Wolfsburg, I've really decided to work on still working in advertising because I love it and I'm passionate about it, but I really wanted to work and apply my experience and expertise exclusively to sustainable brands because I really want to help these brands to develop and I want to decide who will promote and not. And the first time I've been talking about it, I remember it was around a Christmas party in a very big agency, and we were laughing and doing jokes. And then at one stage I mentioned, which kind of account you wouldn't work on? And then the people laughed and say, we are not here to ask ourselves on which account we should work on. And for me, it was very clear that I would not work for an account such as Shell or other brands that have a huge, massive CO2 impact and footprint. Then, very early stages, I wanted to work that way, but it was not really possible. Then I made it with some partners possible. And it's the first agency in the world that does that, actually.
That's such a strong part of the appeal, and there's a great actual tie-in there with TDA as well. You know, one of the things that is part of our ethos and part of our drive on the agency and service provider side is to empower agencies and people who provide services to have more say over what they work on. And so, you know, we've tried to open the door to say, hey, post your case studies, post your interests, post your values, tell people, project what you can do rather than responding to what people ask for all the time.
That's amazing.
We're starting to make traction on it. It's an industry shift. So it's not going to happen overnight, but that is part of our idea, is that, you know, we can enable and empower agencies to say, this is what we're good at, rather than other people defining them. And hopefully that will start to show up more and more as we put the spotlight on more agencies like yours.
Thank you.
So can you pinpoint the key differences between a traditional agency and a mission-driven agency and how you created those differences?
You mean in terms of processes, how we select the brands we work with, or how we work and implement the campaigns differently as another agency?
I was thinking the first part about selecting the clients, but I would also be curious to hear about how the work process is different as well.
Okay, sure. Then in terms of the way we actually select the clients, it's very easy. Then we are looking first at the social impact, and then we look where they are based, the brands, where they produce. And then when we have some doubts, for example, a brand was producing older I mean, they told us that they were producing everything in Portugal, which was amazing because we were talking about very small delivery and low impact in terms of transportation. Then this looked well in terms of social impact of the brand. But when we looked further online, because we think it's very important to not only listen what the client has to say, but really verify, because every time we actually promote a client, we need to be careful that it doesn't backfire on us or the client. Therefore, we did some further research and we find out that they were working and having some plans in China as well, but at no stage they mentioned that point. Then we challenged them and we asked them, can you provide more information? It can be made in China and be completely sustainable. That's possible, but they need to actually provide further information and further proof about it. And then they didn't reply to us. They were scared, I guess, and find out that we find out. And then we didn't collaborate further. Then this is the first aspect we are looking at. The second one is environmental impact. And therefore, you have amazing certifications that can prove that it's the product or the service is being done in a very environmental way, that it has a reduced environmental impact. Then the best way to look at it is really certification. And the third point we look at, it's CSR, corporate social responsibility. Then how the company redistribute a part of their profits to the community and to the environment. And we are not talking here about greenwashing, little peanuts flashed to the highlights, but we are talking about subsequent budgets that are invested in biodiversity protection or environmental actions. These are the three parameters that we look at before to agree to collaborate with the brands. And the way we implement, then to the second part of your question, the way we actually implement the campaigns is drastically different. Because first of all, we have a huge database of sustainable influencers that has been working with us on the past campaigns. Then and the way we plan is towards and around a sustainable audience that we know very well for over 8 years now. Then the way we manage data, we have probably more data than other agencies when it comes to planning towards a sustainable audience. Then we have more cards in hands and we are more knowledgeable of that audience. And the last point, really, it's when you talk about sustainability, and I already mentioned it very shortly, but it's the fact that you need to be extremely careful on every word and any information you use, because anything can backfire at you if it's vague or it's misleading. Therefore, we are really specialized on using the right information, the most correct, the most accurate information that we provide to our audience. And all this require really an expert agency to be implemented in a correct and first-class way.
In terms of scope, is that intentional? Are you staying within the continent of Europe on purpose to help yourself be able to do more of your due diligence and manage the client base, or do you foresee growing outside of Europe, or
that's a very good question. That's a very good question. We already have an entity that is on hold that is called 360 Agency Americas. But the thing is, we really want to grow slowly. Our goal and objective is to have 100% of the clients we work on happy and satisfied. We don't want to go too fast and make people unhappy. You see, I've been working for more than a decade on the huge agency side, and everyone knows that the truth is that when you pitch a client, very often the people that you are going to see in the pitch are not the people who are going to take care of your account on a daily basis. And we really want to avoid to be in that situation. Therefore, we really want to grow slowly and to ensure a level of satisfaction that it's maximal. Therefore, we really want to take the time to develop test our processes. And this is what we did with Berlin and Germany. First of all, we love that city, of course, but we really wanted to test all our processes that we had on a global level and apply them for Germany and Berlin. And then now that we are confident that they work, we want to make it go to Europe. And once all the processes will be in place and working perfectly well, then we'll take care of 360 Agency Americas. But there is no point. For us, profit is not the first objective, and it's not our first KPI. Then we really want to take the time to do it right.
Excellent. That's I live here in Croatia, but as an American, I'm happy to hear that as well.
Thank you.
In terms of values and alignment for the agency in general and with clients, do you look, I know you look specifically at climate change. Is sustainability the only thing you focus on, or are there other considerations that you have when you look at the values of a client and aligning them?
No, there is really definitely the two that we are looking at is social impact and environmental consequences. They are the two most important points. For example, of course, it's extremely important to ensure that the brand is not destroying further nature and that we are not going to promote the brands that do so. But it's also important to ensure that we are not promoting a brand that employs children, for example, and that has negative social impact. Then I would say, and that's the definition of sustainability in general. Really, it's to ensure that we know that we promote brands that have a positive or at least a neutral social and environmental consequences. It's really the core of our action, I would say, and expertise. But I think we should keep concentrating on this and not go in too many different directions. I think there is enough to do with this too, actually.
Sustainability, as you dig into defining it, it gets actually broader and encompasses more than just climate change, for instance. So
Right.
It's also your answer to my other question about growth and expanding. You're practicing what you preach. As a company, you are thinking sustainably about how you can sustain your ethos as a brand, as an agency, before just saying grow, get bigger, get more and more and more. So I think that's a nice kind of dovetail between the way the company works from the inside out and the way the company looks from the outside in.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree. We needed to have a consistency in what we do and what we say, and
right.
How we apply business as well on our agency side. I think we need definitely to kind of be exemplary. We cannot say do that and do something else. It wouldn't make sense. It's because we are truly, we believe that we need to act fast, that we implement ways of growth that are really not completely driven into profit and revenues, because we are moving towards a new era now. For decades, profit was the main KPI to measure success. But the thing is, now we are entering an era where the parameters are getting much more complex. Of course, you need to generate revenues to survive, but that is not what measures and defines success now. What are you doing on the side? Are you having a positive impact? Are you actually increasing your CO2 footprint? Are you helping biodiversity to be protected? What are you doing for the planet? For a very long time, greed was seen as something, and sorry to use that word, but it's an adequate one. I think greed and expansion was being seen as the must have. But the thing is, now we realize that growth without clear parameters that gets to balance with environmental impact is not that great, neither for us, neither for the environment, neither for the planet. Then for a very long time, people who were extremely wealthy were massively respected and looked at stars. And I don't know, nowadays I have the impression we are more, looking at people that do things for us and for the planet. To generate a huge amount of revenue, it's good for you. But is it good for us as human beings? Is it good for us, for the planet? You see what I mean? I have the impression that more and more, if you want approval, and not only approval, but consideration and support, you need to prove that what you are doing as an individual, but as a company as well, has a positive consequence for everyone.
You're listening to the Top Digital Podcast.
That's one small step for man.
In a situation kind of like the one that you described, where you essentially have to turn down business or a potential client, obviously that must impact the bottom line. Do you have sort of countermeasures in place that you can talk about, that you do things to make sure that you find clients that do align with the values of the agency, and that you can always find sustainable clients that you want to work with?
That's a very good question. When we created the agency, we were approaching actively clients, and the pool of clients that could work with us was not so big. But the thing is, nowadays, there are a huge amount of brands that not only that existed at that point, but that have been created that are really specialized into sustainability and sustainable products. Then the real, I would say, pool of brands we can work with is definitely increasing day by day. Nowadays, we are in a very comfortable situation that it's the clients that are approaching us and not the contrary. Then actually there is a German article that has been written about us saying we were the Berkheim agency, which means that we can allow ourselves to decline clients and this attract more clients, if it makes sense. Then, we are in quite a good position here and now to be able to decline working on clients. And by having that philosophy, and by sticking very strongly to that process, then it attracts more serious clients who really are into sustainability and that are a pleasure to work with.
Has there ever come a time where, say, internally as an agency, everyone doesn't align, where you have to make a decision about, okay, what are our values? If ours don't always align personally, do we compromise? Do we turn something down? How do you handle that, or have you had to handle that?
That's a very good question. No, we look everything together. It's really a teamwork, I would say. Even the graphic designer is asked what she thinks. It's really, we review together, we talk together, and we always come to a consensus, really. And the thing is, the people who work on the agency are truly motivated by the philosophy and the whole ideas that goes with the agency. Then it's people who have strong values as well. Then I don't see them thinking or saying, let's do it anyway. You see what I mean? Because they are really pushed by this way of seeing life and seeing work. Then no, we don't have anyone that kind of lower standard and say, fine, let's do it. No. In general, we arrive quite fairly quickly to a consensus. And it's mainly by looking information, looking further information, or we don't find anything and everything is transparent and great, or as what I mentioned for the client at the start, very shady things that we find online and we have to decline or ask further questions that they don't reply to and stop collaborating or not collaborate at all. Then no, usually it's actually quite straightforward.
It's funny how teams sort of self-select and you find that you have more in common than not. I wanted to also ask you about what impacts from your work so far are you really most proud of? And I'd love to hear what you're most proud of. And then I would be curious to hear if an outsider would say the same thing.
Yeah. The work that we are the most proud of is the last campaign that we've done for the European Commission. We won a few awards for that campaign. Then it's called, no, before I give the name, actually, I introduce the brief. Then it was a very broad brief from the European Commission managed by SEQUA, that it's an NGO from Germany. And their objective was to raise as fast as possible awareness on the fact that fast fashion has a detrimental impact on the environment. I explain further. Then in fact, just to produce one t-shirt in cotton, you need 10,000 liters of water. And I'm not talking about a coat or jean. I'm really talking about a simple cotton t-shirt. 10,000 liters of water. It's what you actually drink yourself, Gary, in the time frame of 1.5 years. Then it's an immense, tremendous amount of water that it's required to fabric garments. Then this was the first aspect, the really environmental impact. And then the second aspect that people tend to forget is the social consequences, the fact that there is children working in this industry. It actually employs 1/10 of children around the world, you know? And when I think about my kids, the fact that a kid is, you know, when they don't go to school, they would replicate their social faith forever. You know, they cannot educate themselves. They will stay in poverty and they will stay for generations in poverty. Then it's really hard, first of all, the social consequences of this industry. And the third horrible thing is that we are drowning. We are literally drowning under the amounts of tissue and garments that people don't want to use. And because we don't know how to recycle them, for example, you need to understand that a single t-shirt takes actually 450 years in polyester when it's made out of polyester to decompose, you know, and if it burns in landfills, then it emits a lot of toxics. Then we're in a situation now, and for a lot of countries all around the world, where we've been starting to export our garbage in Africa and in South America. Then we've came across horrendous images, videos, where you see people living in garbage with clothes. You know, they don't know what to do with it anymore. And even though the legislation doesn't allow countries to give garbage to Africa, we've seen the number, and there is very serious studies about it, that have seen the number of clothes that are given to Africa, and most of them are not usable anymore. You see what I mean? Right. Then so the problem is immense. And then the European Commission came with that brief, and it was a very open brief. We don't know what to do, but we want people to know about it. And then we came with that idea that it's called Beyond Your Clothes. Then we've created a website, which is a parallax website called beyondyourclothes.com. And there, thanks to a very great, amazing website, which is really impressive, not only in terms of graphic design, but in terms of programming and developing. Then it's a very interactive website. We have a lot of people who've been working in the content to be sure that we had the most fresh and the most accurate content that no one could question, or could change or could ask us to change. Then therefore we asked some very great NGOs like Greenpeace, who are doing great work with a very precise measurement on how many rivers have been completely polluted because of this industry, and which kind of material can be used. And in fact, then we had that, not only that website, but that first phase of realization, then creating content, thanks to great material showing the direct impacts of our clothes consumption. This was the first phase. And the second phase was really based on, it was solution-based. How can we take that pyramid, being our what we buy impacting directly the production and our environmental impact, how turn down up and down these pyramids and ensure that we can have a virtuous cycle instead of a vicious one. And then therefore we were bringing solutions. Okay, what should we do? First of all, immediately we should buy less clothes. We should buy definitely more quality clothes as well. And there are some materials that are much more sustainable to use, like linen, that it's biodegradable and that it's recyclable as well. Cotton, but bio-cotton, hemp made then material and fabrics made out of hemp. And then maybe, instead of buying a t-shirt that it's less than 10 euros, and actually the environmental cost, it's much higher than that. It's 10 euro for you that you are going to pay, but as humans, we pay because that it's much higher than that. However, instead of buying a 10 euro t-shirt to 6 euros that is going to die after the first washing machine trip, then in that case, take a t-shirt that costs a bit more, but has a thicker fabric, that is going to last longer. And then this is a kind of choice that are important to be made. And then we've created a TikTok, Instagram accounts, and the numbers are incredible. Then in the length of a few months, we reached 100,000 followers on Instagram, and I think it was 75,000 on TikTok. It worked extremely well. The KPIs that we agreed with the European Commission has been completely over-exceeded. They were super happy with the work provided. And, for any work that you do for the European Commission, there is an audit process after the work, and they confirmed that people at the European Commission were very happy with the work. Then people, and we won awards, and we had great feedback about it. Then, I think we have a real alignment for that campaign between what we wanted to achieve, with that journey, like kind of behind the scene of what's happening really on how our clothes are made and what are the real consequences of buying cheap clothes and fast fashion, and what people perceived and how they've seen the campaign and how they assessed and liked it. Then there is a real alignment, I think, on that campaign.
The fast fashion problem is such a disturbing problem because fabric and clothing should be the uber sustainable process. And for years before people developed further, it was, we were using materials in a much more sustainable way as a species for so long. And then we kind of lost our way in recent years, and it's weird. It's like nobody noticed. Wait a minute, things are changing, and this is probably not the way we should be going. So,
no, you're right. Some studies have been proving that the quality of clothes in the last decades have been massively decreasing. We
Right.
find more polyester, we find more nylon, and we find more kind of different materials together. And therefore, to recycle these different materials is a nightmare for the recycling plants. You know, it's
Right.
not really possible. Then it increases the extent of the problem. Then you're totally right. The kind of the quality and the big distribution of clothes and garments have been definitely decreasing in the last decades.
This is the Top Digital Podcast, presented by TDA.
I did want to talk to you about how you see marketing, both from the marketer side and from the agency side, changing. Do you foresee more agencies like yours coming up in different locations? Do you see agencies maybe creating sub brands or sub agencies like some of the big ones do already, with more of a values alignment? And if so, is that a good thing? I'm just curious to hear what you see coming in the industry.
To be honest with you, it existed for quite a while to have agencies that do sustainable communication, which means they take a client on board and they follow the brief in order to give a sustainable communication of that particular brand. Then this is not new, you know, but this can be in certain circumstances greenwashing. Then, but to select the clients we or the agency work on, that's another thing that really was not in place before. I doubt that more agencies are going to do so because it takes a lot of time and it's really risking the incomes of the agencies. And I don't think so many agencies are going to take the exact same route. However, to do sustainable communications and communicating on a sustainable way for brands, this is going to increase, of course. Like in agencies that are specialized or very big groups that will create little agencies that do sustainable communication, yes, this will definitely happen more and more. However, the way we actually proceed is extremely different, and I don't think so many agencies are going to have the balls to do it because, you know, we don't feel that we have anything to risk. We do it anyway. When you are a big agency, you've been working and knowing these big brands for a very long time. Then if you do not accept to work with them, this is a much more challenging process. You see what I mean?
Right.
They might be much often than us in a very delicate situation. We don't have that problem. You see what I mean? We have criteria that we need to fulfill to work for a client. And if it's a big client or not, it doesn't make any difference for us because our reputation and our values are more important than anything else. But in the case of a very big agency that operates under the name of a smaller agency that already have existing clients, it's going to be very hard to decline clients that they haven't worked with in the past. Then even if they do so, sustainable communication, we still have, I would say, some advance on the competitors. But in the case of agencies doing what we do, we don't care.
That's great. I think I like that attitude. I played a lot of sports in the family of athletes and coaches.
Cool.
And it's the same attitude, right? It's like, I don't care if you can do what I can do. Great. Let's play. You know, like I'll play against you, I'll play with you. It doesn't matter. Like that's a good thing if
exactly
other people start playing the way I play, whatever sport it is or whatever game you're playing.
That's a nice way to see life. I agree. As long as it's true. I mean, you know, it's always about competition. We are really about, that's something that it's really in our mind, like if it was over everything. But if we can work together towards a better world, if more agencies actually review the chains of production of their clients before to agree to work for them, amazing. we'll have less brands allowing themselves to do absolutely everything they want and taking natural resources, common natural resources, against, the will and the future of everyone, then if more agencies do it, why not? Go for it, guys. Really, it's needed.
Thank you to Andrea for taking the time to speak with me. Our conversation gave me plenty to think about, and hopefully it had the same effect on you. For more stimulating conversations about agencies, brands, marketing, and more, be sure to subscribe to the Top Digital Podcast, wherever you get your podcasts.